hello everyone. My name is Rajiv Jayaraman. I am the founder CEO of KNOLSKAPE and the author of a Wiley book called Clearing the Digital Blur. And I've been a contributing author in a book called Transformational Leadership in Banking. So this week has been eventful for us at KNOLSKAPE. It has been about 9 sessions around talent and trust and technology in the space of BFSI. And really thrilled that this is going to be the grand finale of sorts. And I'm super excited to have Deepak Sharma with us. Deepak is a veteran when it comes to digital transformation and BFSI, and really eager to have a chat with him on the topic of AI in BFSI. And we're going to be covering a range of topics in this session, starting from innovation to regulation to customer experience and so on. It's going to be a good 60-minute conversation, and we intend to have a dialogue for about 45 minutes, and we'll open up the floor for Q&A for about 15 minutes. So please use the Q&A box in case you have questions along the way. So I'll quickly introduce Deepak. Deepak is a seasoned digital leader, currently advising some of the world's leading Indian and global organizations, including Fortune 100 companies. He's currently serving on the advisory boards of Instabase, of Suryoday, Small Finance Bank, and Experian. In his very recent role as President and Chief Digital Officer at Kotak Mahindra Bank, Deepak played a pivotal role in developing and scaling the bank's digital business, notably through initiatives like Digital Bank 811. So, and I'm also happy to let you know that Deepak and I are working on a book titled Clearing the AI Blur. I'm super excited about that. And our mission here is to help organizations and leaders get their heads around how to successfully embrace and scale AI in their respective organizations. So, Deepak, people these days count the number of minutes before somebody utters the word AI in a meeting, and we've already done it. So, let me get started. So the way I'm going to be proceeding in this fireside chat is, start with the 30,000 feet, talk about the industry, the context in which AI is getting deployed. Then I'll move into certain trade-offs, right? Why are companies sort of experiencing trouble when they want to implement AI? Then I want to focus a little bit on AI blur, specifically around data and learning models and so on. And finally, since our audience is primarily HR and L&D professionals, we will focus on what, as leaders they can do to prepare their organizations for the AI age. So that's going to be the structure of today's conversation. So I'm going to get started with the future of banking in the age of AI. So from a strategic perspective, maybe we can get started with, what do you envision as some defining characteristics of the bank of the future in the age of AI? What does that even look like?
Hey, thanks, Rajiv, for getting me here. This is an area which I think intrigues all of us, and everyone here has their own perspective. So, and there is no one right answer. So what I will do through this next 60 minutes with you is try to bring in different perspectives of what we are hearing and seeing from professionals who are in the industry. Also how folks who are building technology and offering it to institutions are talking about it. Also, when we look at this whole classic debate of humanizing versus the futurizing part as to what is the human aspects of AI versus what is the true potential of AI. So I think there are many ways in which we can slice and dice and see what is the future of AI looks like for financial service. But the reality is that financial services, they deal with a lot of data, probably more data than any other industry does. The data is also confidential data, and a data has a significant impact on various decision-making, be it on the strategy, be it on investments, mergers and acquisition, advisory and recommendations, customer experience and service, managing the whole risk, return, regulatory and compliance. So I think financial institutions have true opportunity not just to manage their current business better at the back of AI, but also find a better way or a smarter way to offer customer a greater and a personalized choice and experience around what are their key motivations around money. It can be around how do they manage their risk better, or whether they should be taking a certain kind of credit for a certain tenure or not, which is purely building a financial prudence around customers, and not just about selling financial products. So I think when you start imagining the true potential of AI, it has two levers. One is how do you transform and change things and run it more efficiently? This is what most financial service players today are thinking and doing. The second part of it, which I have not yet heard in many conversations, but I'm sure as it matures will lead into, is what is the true potential of AI in reshaping the way financial services are rendered, be it in terms of products, be it in terms of services, be it in terms of the pricing, be it in terms of taking a strategic decision, building customer digital literacy around consuming things, and creating a greater awareness about what AI is delivering in a human manner. Because at the end of it, you can achieve a lot more by just sidestepping the human aspect of AI. But finding the right balance between empowering people or resources that financial services employ and still make them more smarter and more intelligent in the way they interact and serve with the end consumer. And I think that's where a lot of work will be required. While I think the first one, we are seeing a fair amount of POCs and some use cases that are getting developed. So that's a big picture. I would still say this is like a 10,000 feet, not 30,000 feet. But yeah, I think we are happy to get into specific aspects and then dive deeper.
Awesome. I love that framing, Deepak, because I think what you're talking about is, on the one hand, there is perform, which is here and now, how do we do things more efficiently? And then there is a transform part, right? How do we fundamentally change the way we are delivering value to our customers? And what I'm hearing you say is there's a lot of activity going on in the perform part, right? Doing things more efficiently, automation, and so on. Often confused with AI, but that's going on. And transform is where you're starting to see some movement, but not a lot of case studies yet. So I love that. So in terms of just double clicking on that, right? Does it mean that the bank of the future will become, and even in the case of digital transformation, we heard this, and you've spearheaded 811. Is the platform model the right model going forward for traditional banks? And can you also throw some light on the dynamic between fintechs and banks? Is that going to dramatically change? Who has an advantage in the age of AI? You spoke about data. Traditional banks, large incumbents have a lot of data, but maybe fintech companies don't. So can you throw some light on what that equation might look like? And will this be, again, a movement more towards banks as platforms?
So I think this bank versus fintech debate, we should set to rest. I don't think that's even a debate because some smarter banks will look more and more like fintechs, and some good fintechs at scale will start looking more trustworthy and reliable like banks. So I think eventually what will happen is access to technology is available to everyone. Adoption of technology, including AI, is something that depends on how bank boards and management are prioritizing and putting their resources towards it. And what is I would say, a realistic vision that they are setting themselves against? Are banks going to become more like one of the tech companies? I know some banks thought they can, but in reality, you can't. Because when you are a tech company, you need to break things to move fast. You need to innovate fast because otherwise you don't even have a business. On the contrary, for a bank, if you move fast and you break things, for all you know, you may not even have a bank.
Yeah.
So I think running the financial institution is also a lot more about understanding all the levers of risk and regulation while you innovate within those frameworks. You cannot break the true framework on which your license or operating norms are given to you by regulators. Thereby, I think it's important for banks to work with smarter companies who are innovating on the outside, and those innovations can be brought within the firm. So that's a broader question to the first question that you asked. Second, I think what you asked, banks looking like a platform. Answer is absolutely yes. Because what is financial service at the end of it? I mean, if you just go back and question you, me, and 140 billion people in this country, and then of course, many more customers or say non-resident individuals who are in different parts of the world want to do banking in India, or if you are a global multinational bank, then you are operating across multiple countries or geography. You cater to very, very different customer segments and personas. A small business to a wealth or HNI customer to a mass affluent individual to probably someone who is a blue collar who's just trying to meet his ends every day. Banks were never designed around customers. And I think as we start reimagining, that's the transform part which you brought in. What is the best way in which you can offer customers of different kind with different needs the service and a product of value at a cost that is affordable both to the manufacturer, who's a bank in this case, and to the customer who's going to pay for it. And I think when you spoke about 811 or some of the other digital stuff that I was involved as a part of Chief Digital Officer, our idea was simple that, if we reduce the cost to produce and deliver a financial product and a service, then it can be afforded by billions of users. If you continue to build your business models, which are on, say, branches and large network and huge capex, scalability of that business model itself is a challenge. Second, if you scale, it comes at a higher cost. And thereby you have to price it appropriately, and thereby you end up excluding a lot of customers. I think building bank as a platform is giving you an opportunity that you can build things at scale. Today, look at cloud as an infrastructure. You don't need to build large data centers. I think similarly, when we are looking at truly the potential of data, looking at the light core banking systems or the CRM system, fraud risk and analytics engine, whole risk compliance, KYC, customer onboarding, pretty much technology has solved a lot, but it's still solved in compartments. I think building bank as a platform is going to integrate all the services as horizontal, which can be scalable to the level of infinite. And thereby, it's much easier to incrementally offer products and services to the next million, 10 million, 100 million customers without adding a lot of cost incrementally. And I think that is what a platform does. Platform helps you scale up at a disproportionate level without necessarily adding the cost in the same proportion. And I think today's technology is making that possible.
Awesome. I love that response. So in fact, one of the things that I'm tracking is, between the perform and transform kind of a frame, on performance, organizations are trying to AI enable themselves by maybe taking one particular problem and applying AI on it. But whereas for transform, you'll have to think horizontal. You have to think new workflows that did not exist earlier, right? And that's where the radical shift is going to happen. Otherwise, it's just going to be more of the same. Maybe we do things a little bit more efficiently, but transformation would require that horizontal thinking that you were speaking about, where end-to-end flows from a customer standpoint is all stitched properly, right? And then because of the scale that the platform offers, you're able to bolt on a lot of services, a lot of platforms, and in the end, you end up owning the customer because they get everything they need from that one platform.
Yeah, and not just owning the customer. I would just take this a little ahead to that. being where customer is and when he or she needs you. So banks end up becoming more like a omnipresent but invisible layer.
Right.
And you don't just go to a bank, not in the physical world or even on your mobile app, but you are wherever you are. If you are shopping and you need a credit is embedded at the point of purchase or a point of consumption. Or insurance is available at the point when you are making a travel reservation or a booking. So I think how banks will continue to become present at the moment, and thereby banks that can capture more customer moments will end up winning in this whole customer intimacy battle, versus those who are just thinking of this as a massive tech overlay where customers will come and then they will get everything. It doesn't work that way. I think customers have a choice and customers will figure out where they can get the best offer. So you need to be present where customers are.
Awesome. Yeah, that's basically being customer first. And I love the way you mentioned earlier that banks were not originally built for the customer, right? There were a bunch of products. It was a linear business model, but now truly customers are at the center of this whole business model, and banks have to start anticipating what the need could be and be there when the customer needs them. I love that framing. So now switching gears into now, given all the promise that AI has got, and we've seen multiple success stories come out of this thing, what actually is the roadblock, right? So there, from our experience, and you were referencing this whole futurizing and humanizing, the so-called conflict need not be a conflict, but sometimes it does end up becoming one. One thing that we are tracking actively at KNOLSKAPE is, the three W's of future of work, namely work, worker, and the workplace. People say, the world has to be added to it for ESG, but keeping that aside, but work, worker, workplace, all the three have been transformed in the last few years, especially post-pandemic. Work has become futurized. No conversation gets done without AI getting mentioned. Personalization is a big one, both for customers and for employees alike. The third element is humanizing the workplace. While AI is happening, we are also seeing a surge in conversations around psychological safety and trust, right? Does the AI system really do the right thing with my data? And all of those things, right? And as a person who has basically driven large scale transformations like these in the past, what's your recommendation for organizations to basically take care of this trade-off between futurizing, humanizing, and personalizing?
I think great question. And this is not just a dilemma for those who are slow to start, but this will be a bigger challenge for those who are starting fast enough without thinking about it. Because this is the reality that we will see. And in some ways, I would say this started with my first phase of the journey when I was setting up the whole digital vision for the bank. And a lot of people were very fearful about it and then you start asking them, what are people worried about? And then you realize that a lot of worry comes from ignorance or misconception. So I always keep saying that the first important thing in any transformation, whether it was a digital transformation way back in 2010, 2015, or now the AI-led transformation in this current decade, I think the starting point is communication, because at the end of it, whatever said and done, we are going to work with people. Whether the people will be of a different skill level or their roles at work will change, or the kind of talent or the skill enhancement or upgrade that will go through a transformation. We do all agree that it's not that you will eliminate people completely as you are embracing more and more of technology. But the role of people, the skills of people will definitely go through a change. And I think that's the first starting point when organizations are embarking on bold transformation around AI. Because a lot of times the statements or use cases are done by one part of the organization, which can be a technology team, or if there is an AI or a data science team, at times the business teams. But AI impacts all. And I think since you mentioned that a lot of folks on this call are also from HR fraternity, and that impacts the human resources of organization. I think HR has a very important role in this whole transformation exercise. So I will say there are 3 or 4 key building blocks in my mind, which are extremely important to look at it. One is, as organizations are building or stating their vision on what do they want to achieve, it's important to have very objective clarity of, as a firm, what is it that we are going to transform, and thereby what kind of human aspects will also go through a change. I think once you state that vision clearly, people are more prepared about if they have to learn and upgrade and upskill to be relevant. Absolutely, they get time to. I mean, those who do not change, that's a bad thing. But I'm saying those who want to. So I think as the organization is shifting its vision and strategic objectives and goalposts, it also brings in what kind of the human side of it is part of their vision. I think the second part is, as the strategic vision, projects, and initiatives are laid out, what is the governance framework through which you are implementing this change? So typically in every organization, when we run transformation, we have steering committees or technology governance committees or of people who come across between business, product, tech, and they discuss how the projects are progressing. I think it's important to also have, in case of AI-led initiatives, folks from legal and HR and compliance to be part of those committees, because AI use cases cannot be developed only in isolation without looking at what are the ethical or human or the regulatory or the legal concerns can be around. At the same time, I think most organizations today, they do not have something called an AI board or an ethics board. But going forward, I expect that as organizations embark on this journey, they will also start thinking about putting up ethics board just to ensure that, because just like today, ESG has become not just a tick mark, but it's become a part of the whole sustainability board, regulator, shareholder, everybody looks at it. I think going forward, all the stakeholders of the institution are also going to look at what is the AI ethics board is doing. How responsible are you as an institution in implementing AI? What changes or value is it creating for all the stakeholders, including for employees, in terms of the fairness, transparency, bias, etc. I think also the third part of it is organizations will have to start defining. It's very early days, so I'm not saying it will happen tomorrow, but probably as we start going through from a POCs or pilots to some scale, the whole governance board will look at what is a responsible innovation means. And that leads to whether the innovation around AI is helping human do better. That means, are you going to build AI more as assisted and a co-pilots and make human function more efficient, or are these going to replace people? Because those moment you start getting into those conversations, and that's why I said that is probably going to happen a bit later, but that is important consideration to think once you have a governance framework. And parallelly, the last I would say is both communication and narrative, like I mentioned, is extremely important when you are building this transformation. But how are you creating the digital literacy, reskilling framework? Because while you are making these changes, you can't leave your employees behind. So I think, how are you thinking about the human potential and what are you doing around human potential? So I would say these are the 3 or 4 key things. While the technology part, people will get it right. But since these are running organizations with a set of human values and people and roles, aligning that is something which is a bigger challenge for the firms as they move ahead.
Awesome. I love that. Very structured strategy, governance, communication, upskilling. These are the various building blocks that you've spoken about. Now, the other trade-off that usually happens is, especially in a regulated environment, the push and pull between innovation and compliance, right? So, are there things that you figured out how to break that deadlock, right? Do you create a sandbox? Do you basically work with startups? And there are multiple ways in which organizations do it. When it comes to AI, are you seeing a different playbook this time around?
So I think in context of any regulated institution, my famous analogy I will repeat again is your accelerators in the car can be only as good as your brakes are.
Right.
And if you do not know where your brakes are and how good your brakes are, you cannot accelerate fast enough. I think any innovation, be it around even AI now today, there are a lot of sharp bends around the curve. And if you want to steer fast and you don't even know the terrain or the road ahead, you're likely to meet with some accidents somewhere on the way, and that can set you back. So I am not a proponent of going slow, but I am a big advocate of always trying to find out what are those blind spots that you are not aware of. I think compliance, legal, data cleanliness, or integrity of your data, what are the kind of algorithms and the models, how do you ensure that there is a auditability and explainability of the models and the outcome. All these are, and there are many more. I think we can, and as you and I, we write that book together, we'll talk a bit more about it. But
Yeah.
I think there are a set of things that one needs to go deeper into just to ensure, and it's not a job of a compliance guy. Like when I was leading and running digital, I always used to tell digital is not about innovating or innovating fast enough. Digital is more about transforming and driving change in a responsible and compliant manner. Because I mean, if you are a startup and you can go and do some crazy things, it's okay. Nobody is going except you are blowing some capital. But back to again the same model here in banks or insurance companies or other industries which are regulated is you're dealing with the real trust. So if your model starts to score in a certain manner, which all of a sudden starts to reject a certain profile of customers of a certain geographical region or a certain kind, and that bias has crept in, and if you say this was an output of an AI, sorry, that doesn't work. I think so. One of the important things for people to realize is any tools that we are employing, finally, from the regulatory and compliance perspective, as human and as business or institution, the accountability is with you. It's not with the model. That means that understanding all the constructs, be it under DPDP Act, be it in terms of what is the consent manager framework, how will you ensure that your models are trained and regressive testings are done? How are the whole governance from auditability of algorithm and explainability of outcomes are traced back? I think these are all the day zero things that has to be put in place. And only then you will be able to scale it up. So there's no half measure to say this is something we'll do it later. And that's why, be it with any startup or building it within, it's important even for those, a lot of startups today, at least I know, they realize the value of compliance and regulation as a part of their core business construct. Because many of them in the past have realized that the penalty they had to pay for this being an afterthought was very, very severe.
Right.
But yeah, I think I would say that every single institution, but at the same time, I have also seen some institutions are extremely fearful of not even trying to move forward because they think there is a lot of unknown. And I think that is where probably how to get this whole, whatever the blinds they have got put, because they think something may go wrong and thereby it's better not to really take it to scale and run it only as POCs. That's not going to serve them well either. So I think one has to move forward, but has to have a clear construct of things to watch out for as we progress.
Awesome. I love that. So, and in the context of innovation that's happening on a daily, weekly basis, some major breakthrough comes around. Google I/O happened recently, and the kind of updates that they are bringing in, it's just mind blowing. So, does that also weigh in the minds of CDOs of organizations that hey, something major might happen in the next 2 to 3 months, and whatever investments that we are making in the AI space might go down the drain. Is there an element of wait and watch going on with companies that's probably slowing them down?
No, not exactly. I would say, I think, see, one of the good things is with all these daily or weekly advancement, I think it has brought in a higher mind share and awareness at all levels in the senior management and board. And so that makes it easier for the CXOs or CXOs -1 to communicate and create a buy-in for those initiatives within the organization.
Right.
Second, it's not that if you don't move fast enough, you will end up losing your business. I don't think AI is today for a regulated financial institution a playbook like what you would see with a Google or Meta or ChatGPT happen, because there the war is technology is the business, and thereby if they do not innovate fast enough, they lose this whole concentration and customer, and thereby that battle is very different. For financial institutions, technology empowers the business, and if you do not manage your, say, risk and credit well, doesn't matter how good are you at implementing an AI solution, you will still go down the drain. So I think for them, it's important, and I always did this, and I keep saying it even now. You don't need to run as fast, but you don't need to be the last. Right. But I think finding that right space as to where you want to be, and more importantly, rather than aping what others are doing, I think important is to go back on the first principle and say, where is the strategic value for the organization?
Right.
Some organizations can say, hey, listen, I don't want to go and innovate a lot around new products and new customer segments. I'm okay with my customer segments, but my problem is the way I deliver my customer experience today is horrible. Or probably I have got this massive inefficient operation and a back office support. Or my contact center wait time for customers, and that too with multilingual support, is just not matching up. Now, these may not be very glamorous problems to solve, but these are materially very, very important things for the survival or growth of the business. So if I'm in that organization, I would only go and say, hey, listen, don't worry about what is happening around you. Focus on what are the top 3 big things that you can change in your bank or your insurance company. Say if your claim settlement ratios are low. Or if you are an asset management company, or if you are a wealth advisory company, what is that material shift you can do in your existing business? And if you can bring these 3 use cases to life, doesn't matter what rest of the industry does. And I think in my mind, that is the clear vision that institutions will require as they prioritize their bets. And I'm sure everybody will end up doing different things, but they all will end up doing better than what they are doing today if they pick up those bets and deliver responsibly.
I love what you just mentioned, because right now there is a sense that AI is that hammer, right? And you look around and everything looks like a nail, right? So there's a randomness to how AI is getting used. But what you're recommending is, hey, look at your current problems to be solved, job to be done, right? If customer NPS is low, go solve that, right? And look at how AI can help you do that better. So it is not just, yeah, AI can be a solution, but what is the problem to be solved, right? That clarity has to be there, and that problem has to create value for somebody, right? And solving of that problem.
Yeah.
I really
and mind you, you're never going to be an AI company, let's admit it. So I think a lot of times putting a wrong vision itself will get you to chase a wrong outcome. So I always say that as long as you are clear about the industry that you belong to, what is that you want to achieve, And then you look at AI as a tool that can take you to that goalpost faster and efficient. I think that's the right construct.
Right. And that's a very valuable input, because back in the day, even during digital transformation, leaders were saying, we are a digital company first, bank next. We are a digital company first, pharma company next. I think right now there is some clarity arriving that the domain does matter. Even from an LLM perspective, domain matters. Something very generic may not cut it. So I think there is clarity that, okay, AI is a great tool. It has to be baked into the business for any transformation to happen. But I think the clarity that we are not a digital first company, or we are not a digital company in the banking space, it's actually the other way around. That clarity actually helps. So now shifting gears a little bit and focusing on the blur, right? The AI blur. There are four pillars that we usually speak about. The first one, B in blur, is boundaryless data. Now, in this segment, I would like to double click on each one of these problem statements. What is the problem with data in organizations? Because we are happily talking about AI, but without data, there's no AI story. Now, what do leaders have to do to get organizations to be, firstly, data literate, data fluent, and then at some point they become data masters, right? What does that evolution actually look like? What are some building blocks that leaders have to think through?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So every organization has data, and data was always there because they are regulated entities. So you have to not just have data, but you have to also preserve data for a certain number of years, depending on the regulator's requirement. But I think the challenge with the institutions for data were all sitting in silos.
Yeah.
I think that was the number one, because institutions got different systems at different point in time. They had their own separate data. So if you had a loan data, it's sitting somewhere else. The credit card data is somewhere else. The customer's investment and transaction and payment. So I think that was the initial challenge with the way data was. Eventually, obviously, banks started to build, largely banks, but even NBFCs and few others, they started to get onto the CRM system, the common lead management modules, and thereby they got a customer 360, which largely was about ensuring that you have a single unified view of a customer from dashboarding or any kind of presentation perspective. Similarly, they started using data warehouse and data lake to bring in all data, structured and unstructured, for any kind of insights, regulatory reporting, for fraud risk monitoring. So I think a fair amount of work has happened, but nobody really knew about how data needs to be rethought in the light of AI. I think data structures, the databases, the consolidation of data was all done keeping in mind either regulatory requirement, reporting requirement, customer dashboards, etc. Now, in current context, I think today we are seeing a lot many use cases of data in motion. So if there is a certain event that is happening now, what can I do in the moment and not probably after 24 hours or 36 hours? Like we spoke in the beginning of the session today, the platform banking or embedded finance, that is happening in the moment. That's not happening after a lag.
Yeah.
So if I'm unable to know the context and the need of a customer with the right relevant data at that point in time, there's very little I can do about it. For example, look at today's markets. If I know your portfolio, I know what are the market returns, what has happened to different kind of sectoral indices, or if today the rupee has appreciated significantly. A lot of this data is not your data. There's a data that is coming from second party and third party data. But to build a real-time context of the data for you, depending on what your risk appetite or your asset allocation or your portfolio is a very, very complex outcome. And that's the kind of work financial institutions have not thought through. So I think re-looking at their data architecture, data ingestion model, and seeing that what can you build as a real-time insight, and which can be mix of video, voice, chat, images, and not just text and tables. Uh, so I think fundamentally that is the core building block. And from a long-term perspective, I think this is an investment that is, I would say, again, a day zero investment for organizations to have a better. And then on top of it, I think today they have some data on cloud, some on-prem. So how do you even start making sense of all of that more in the real time? I think becomes extremely critical.
Awesome. And so moving on from data to learning models, that's L in Blur. And there are frontier models, OpenAI, ChatGPT, DeepSeek, and all of that, that seems to work reasonably well in a consumer context. But when you apply that in a domain, things are very different, because you're then talking about data that has to be secure, and a lot of other attributes we have to take care of. What do leaders have to think through when they think in terms of learning models in the context of BFSI? And any examples that you can quote where you feel in a particular area, maybe customer experience, or it could be underwriting or credit risk, or is there any examples that you can think of?
Sure, because one of the companies that I advise and I'm on their advisory board is Instabase, which precisely does that. It's a US-based firm dealing with some of the large global financial institutions, and right from insurance companies to banks. I think 2 or 3 key things that I have picked as I've seen how some of the large global institutions have looked at deployment model. Everybody is saying that I want to have a full control, not just on my data will not go out. That is obviously a day zero ask, which is also truly so, but also the models. So for training the model, how can the model be deployed within my own environment? And thereby I have a full control on those models. So I think the typical deployment becomes one of the key choice. And there the choice is very clear. You develop and deploy it in the VPCs of the individual financial institutions. The second is you have these open models or closed model, but they are not trained for financial service. So domain specific training is very different than you just take a co-pilot and you start running. That's good to play around, and I think we all play around. And but the moment you start deploying those for taking decisions, it can be strategic investments, customer experience, whatever you are doing. Then you need more of your domain specific training and environment. And I think that's where some of the customized models from institutions who have taken the models of one of these existing, it can be built on top of Llama or it's built on top of ChatGPT, but they have built their own proprietary tools. So treat it as like a very simple analogy. A lot of you would be using, say, Samsung phone or a OnePlus phone. They all operate on an Android operating system, but they don't use Android OS as it is. You would have heard of some of them use a KitKat, and they have. So they take the core OS, and on top of it, they build their own set of logics and plugins to enhance that experience so that it is rendered best in that device. Some companies like Instabase and few others have just gone exactly doing this. They are not going back and rewriting or writing a new LLM model, but they are LLM agnostic. But within that, they pick a choice, but then they start building industry and domain specific examples. And thereby institutions, then when they start taking a platform like that, it's much easier for them to configure, deploy, run their prompts and start developing things. So I think we have started to see many such solutions. Similarly, there's another company called Harvey, and Harvey is known for those who are doing the legal AI stuff, because that's trained only on the legal data. So I think we will start seeing more and more such players built for financial institutions. It can be for credit, it can be for risk, it can be for compliance, for customer experience. And they make sure that all the safeguards of privacy, deployment, risk are taken care, explainability are all built in as a part of the platform.
Understood. I think that's wonderful. So the third element in Blur U is unlocking value, right? And this typically, and I think there is a question in the Q&A box as well, where the question is around how do we decide where to deploy AI and where do we let a human take charge? So the co-pilot versus the autopilot kind of a decision, and that is central to unlocking value from AI. Any thoughts on this or any framework that you think of to basically decide, how to deploy AI?
Again, I think great question. I wish there was a simple answer, but I can go back to a simple framework since Blur is about framework. Is to look at there are two key aspects for any financial institution. There is a cost and revenue. Moment you start looking at what are your biggest drivers of cost, largely it's premises, people, and then your credit cost. If you start looking at people, and it's not people, is about eliminating people. Contact center, even if you add more and more people, still you cannot reduce the hold time and make the contact center experience really delightful in a language of customer's choice. Adding more people in operations is just not going to make your turnaround time for a loan processing or instruction processing faster. So I think what I have seen institutions pick are use cases which are largely where there's a repeat task, people intensive, and by bringing in a mix of automation along with AI, and why I'm saying this is because you need at times capability of a document image recognition, which is an OCR alongside the workflow automations and a decision-making system. So it's not that it's only AI-led, but AI is embedded. Yeah. But then you can make those workflows and decision much faster, and thereby you can create not just efficiency or reduce turnaround time, but also can save on the cost. And thereby, when you are building your ROI for AI investments, you are able to show that what is the cost save or incremental productivity gain you could get versus this investments that you make. So I think that is one side of the balance sheet. That is all your cost side of it. The second is on, of course, the income side. And that's where ability to upsell, cross-sell, maximize the revenue with customer. For example, giving customer a personalized portfolio construction on their asset allocation and risk on a periodic basis is a very soft and a subtle way for a customer to trust you more, or your RMs to be more empowered in terms of giving customer a right information and build trust. Similarly, be it on the credit side. So I think products which are building even the first AI first bank. I'm saying we had built a digital first bank. Why shouldn't somebody think of building an AI first bank where you have just like a chat GPT kind of a window and you ask and it's done? Why do you need those hundreds of even tabs to go and navigate through to find how do I do a fund transfer or how do I make a bill payment? So maybe I think somebody will think through and say, hey, listen, I want to create a new banking interface which is built with a very different model altogether. So that's the second side of the opportunity. Can you create a new source of revenue or get a new customer pool? So I think the first one is largely the perform, and the second part, what we spoke on the revenue side, is largely transform.
Awesome. I love that. And R in Blur is responsible outcomes, right? While there's a lot of promise and optimism around AI, it does come with its share of risks and dangers. Can you quote maybe a couple of examples of how BFSI organizations are taking care of this element? And you've already given us some insights in terms of transparency, explainability, biases, and so on. Any concrete use cases or examples that you can quote where an organization has done this well?
I think organizations are getting it together right now. The starting point for organizations will be the DPDP Act itself. Because the data privacy, since it's a law, organizations will have to put together a whole governance framework, the consent manager, the traceability and auditability. Also, what I know of, I think through sources is, and it's official, that Even regulators have constituted a committee for AI draft working committee, and hopefully that is going to come out with certain recommendations as to how banks should follow. I'm sure other industries within BFSI vertical will also bring an industry, I would say, accepted standards. So I think DPDP and what industry is coming out along with regulatory oversight would be the two industry framework. The third is largely more led by the individual industries or institutions at their own end. I think that is still at a very early stage, I would say. That will take a lot of time before that matures.
Understood. Okay, so I'm going to now shift gears and focus on the talent part. We spoke a lot about technology, we spoke about trust, elements around compliance and all of that. Now we are shifting gears into talent. And given that our audience is L&D and HR folks, and you are on boards of several companies, what's your top advice to HR leaders and L&D leaders today when it comes to what are the core skills, critical skills that need to be built and how to do it?
Oh, that's a tough one. So I think, see, not everybody needs to be and will be an expert in AI, and you don't need that. Okay, what you need, I would say, is that you need smart drivers who know how to drive smarter cars. I think as organizations starts to become more AI embedded, I think what you need is people who have better understanding on core areas. For example, the prompt engineering. It's not a rocket science, but I think all of us as users, we have to understand that we are going to work in an environment where we will work or we will coexist with a machine who is thinking, not necessarily deciding, but recommending. And you will have that as your co-pilot now. And the classic example of this is, I think we were chatting up earlier, like flying an aircraft. Aircrafts always had an autopilot for ages, but you still have a human pilot. You can leave some navigation to autopilot, but you just don't leave all the controls. I think organizations will have to learn. It's just like flying an aircraft. So all the training and reskilling on how to deal with the turbulence, even when there are a lot of controls and commands are getting trained with various AI initiatives would be key. Second is, I think, how do you create business values with AI tools? For example, writing a user story, designing a product or beta testing a product, user experience design mocks, code generation, prototype testing. Organizations used to take a lot of time building those things in the past, and also used to take a significant amount of investments, resources. I think as L&D and HR folks, the question now is, why do you need so many resources to do things where it can be done along with some of these tools much faster and more efficiently? Even L&D function itself, I think would go through a significant transformation, because the kind of things that people need to learn, a lot of stuff is available for them to learn in different simulated environment of their own. So should those classroom training in the way it used to be rendered are the best ways to train them for everything where the attention spans are low. So fundamentally, like we spoke in the beginning, the nature of work is changing. HR and L&D team has to look at both the reskilling of the resources. For example, if there are people in contact center, or if there are people in operations, and a lot of workflows are now going to get automated, how do they work alongside some of these tools? So there is an AI engine which is listening to a call and giving you prompts as to what to tell customer next or what to pitch next to that customer. You need to just be comfortable dealing with them and see how that blended experience looks like. So it will be a mix of skill, but also a lot of softer aspects of accepting that we will coexist with some of these tools, but they will also help us become better in what we do.
Awesome. So I'm starting to now look at the questions we've received on the Q&A box. And at this point in time, if you have any further questions, feel free to drop your questions on the QA box. I think you've just answered one of the questions here, which is about how AI has enhanced, not replaced, the human experience in customer service or compliance. I think what I just heard you say is maybe if I'm a contact center employee, I still do my job, but I'm assisted by AI in terms of prompts. Have you asked these questions or have you diagnosed the issue in a certain way? I think that's a great example of augmentation. So that's for customer service. Anything on compliance that you can share with us where AI has enhanced and not replaced?
No, I think AI has a lot of things where compliance is actually seeing benefit. For example, if you look at the burden on compliance is only growing by the day in any institution,
Yeah.
right? So for all your regulatory reporting, right, you're right from your Basel III to your FATCA to your SEBI compliance. I think a lot of those reportings now you can generate some of these reports faster. Similarly, your whole KYC, AML compliance, uh, things like anomaly detection, anti-money laundering and transaction monitoring. On portfolio, the continuous due diligence of customers where the exposure is say over 5 crores. Things like risk scoring and stress testing scenarios, audit and governance part with explainability. So every single aspect, if you look at from compliance perspective, even legal perspective, I would say, I think AI is impacting, and all the tools are today helping them be far more productive. Because otherwise, a lot of work in compliance is repeatable,
Yeah.
and it was partially automated, but needed a lot of human effort. I think today we are seeing on all these areas a significant productivity gain and efficiency.
Awesome. There's a question from Anik here, and he asks, when anyone talks on the topic of AI, the issue of security and privacy always tops the list. How can BFSI organizations help in building trust about the technology and not just in its employees, but also in its customers? And I want to just double click on the customer part where you have different segments where you spoke about maybe the rural audience to maybe the Gen Zs who have just entered the workplace to people who are retiring, right? How do you explain the value of this and still build trust with such a diverse set of people?
Now, I think, see, there are two ways in which customers will experience AI. One is you put AI in the front, and that's largely where the chatbots and automated call handling and things like those, I mean, were built. And in the past, we didn't see that as a great experience, right? I'm not still saying that that is where you will see a lot of customer AI impact. But where AI will impact more is people serving customer, they will be armed with better decision making or prompts and recommendations. So if there is a rural customer and if there is a banking correspondent who's going and serving the rural customer, and when he or she meets a customer, he has a better context and understanding of customers' past transaction or any unsolved issues or requests, or if there is any collection that is due or overdue, and what would be the penal charges if they don't pay in time. Just think of it. It's a very simple problem, but that's a big problem in a country like, since I'm also on the board of Suryoday, where we have a lot of microfinance customers, customers typically coming from rural places, small value, small ticket loans. They don't want to understand the complexity of AI. AI is not for them. But how can you make their life better? So for example, if you are able to send them an automated call in a language of their choice, which is conversational in nature, reminding them that you have a payment due, and if you don't pay by such and such time, it can lead to a penal interest, or it may probably impact your credit rating, or there are 3 ways in which you can pay. Would you like to pay now? Would you like to pay later? Now, just think of it. If you're making a human do this call and this guy is doing the same call morning to evening, it's so cumbersome, right? So are you serving customer better? Answer is yes. Is technology helping you deliver that outcome in a language of the choice, at a pace at which customer will understand a certain language? Because you can modulate, you can slow down, you can do all those things. And I think that's how the humanizing part of it, more and more customers will experience it. And I think customers will see it's for human good if it really translates into value for the end customer.
Awesome.
Trust is at the end of it about what you are telling me. Is it really in my interest or not? If you have devious or selfish interest, I think all customers, all of us are smart enough to figure out. And I think that's why I was talking about, if AI ensures that there's no biases are creeping in, you are delivering it in a manner which is easy to understand. And then you also, as an institution, control narrative. Today, when you have a large field force, you don't know what that person has gone and said.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of times, if there is a consistency at an organization value and the trust, then you're also able to standardize that at a certain level and then personalize for different customers that you cater to.
Right. Awesome. I just realized we are at the top of the hour here, but there is an interesting question from Rupali. So I'm going to ask you that question. What AI tools do you personally use day to day? Any use case that surprised you or changed the way you work?
Oh, I use a lot of tools. So I use, I think I have got about 10, 12 of them right here on my devices. So I use Notability, which is largely helps me read and synthesize and also draft a lot of my communication, because I get a lot of emails, hefty stuff to read. Also, there are some companies like Gamma AI, Replit.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are others like Perplexity and Gemini, all of us use. And then there are some new ones that I'm experimenting right now, which is largely more for code generation and for creating the designs on the fly. So that's more on the basis the prompt engineering. How do you create smart prototypes and some user journeys? But yeah, I think this is one place where every week you get hand on at least one or two new cool things. So you'll always find something new to talk about.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Deepak, for all those insights. In the interest of time, I'll wrap this up. Thank you so much, all of you, for being such an active audience. Thank you for the questions. I'll quickly summarize this. Deepak started off with this whole framing of perform and transform, a lot of things happening around efficiencies and automation and things like that, which is more on perform. Things starting to happen on the transform side. Embedded banking or invisible banking, where banking is everywhere, is a key theme he touched upon. And I really love the way he uses metaphors, be it the accelerator and the brake, and the use of the pilot in an airplane. How it's actually completely automated, but you still need the pilot. He spoke about data in motion. I think that seems to be the next frontier when it comes to data readiness. I think he gave us a good structure around strategy, governance, communication, upskilling, and he spoke about compliance and innovation, how to break that trade-off. And he's also inspired us by giving us his list of AI tools that he uses frequently, and I can see a constant learner in him. Always a pleasure interacting with him, Deepak. So look forward to collaborating with you on the book, and as always, an outstanding session. Thank you so much for this.
Pleasure talking to you. Thanks.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Deepak, and thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.